Welcome to Smut and Sensibility,
a podcast for romance readers and romance writers.
By romance readers and writers.
We are Amber,
Allie,
and Marie,
a group of learned ladies who love talking about the romance genre.
In this podcast, we will talk about our favorite books, writing craft, and how we make room for a creative life in real time.
So buckle up and enjoy the ride. First and foremost, who are we? We're connoisseurs of the romance genre. We're friends who met through our writing group, Smut University, and we love to yap. This podcast was born from our unhinged, lengthy voice notes to the group chat. Yeah, so it was through these unhinged notes. My husband, Patrick, lovely human being, I would be like, can I have 5 minutes? I'm listening to the voice note. He's like, you girls just need a podcast. And it was so sweet. And then he sent me a link to be like, this is why podcasts are cool. And then I just screenshotted that text message and sent it to the group. And I was like, he's so sweet, isn't he? And I think, Allie, you were like, but should we? Question mark,
Maybe he's onto something.
He's onto something. And so really it was the group chat and Patrick kind of like nudging us a little bit. And so that's kind of how we got the idea for the podcast. And we lovingly call him husband of the pod.
We do. We do.
So
and
that's really fun.
Yeah, and he supports us, and he actually came up with the name of our podcast as well. So shout out to Patrick, truly pulling his weight around here, which we love to see, because Lord knows there's plenty of men that have podcasts. So why not us, you know?
Exactly. So that's kind of how we got started. We should do brief intros since this is your first introduction to us. I'm Amber, as I've said. I'm a corporate attorney by day and a romance reader and writer by night. And then I recently discovered rage gardening, and I'm a slut for a fireplace and a waterfall. Like, people who visit my house, I think there's either a real or electronic fireplace in each level and room of my house. And I have no shame about that. So that's me.
Awesome. I'm Allie. I am a physician, a writer, and I like to call after hours academic. And I'm actually studying history part-time at Oxford. I just got back. So that's been fun.
I am Marie. Describe myself as an omen, a threat, a formless void. No, I am a corporate drone. I am a writer. I have written as long as I can remember. I've been making up shit for years. And I wrote down Baba Yaga, Gremlin, Cynic, Bogwitch with questionable taste. We don't know if we'll keep that, but we're doing our best. That's all we can do. I don't have an interesting career like these two ladies. So
that's not true. You are very smart.
It is very true.
No, it is
very true.
You know a lot about your industry, and you answer questions for me all the time.
I know like 4 things about stuff. If it can be put in a spreadsheet, I feel calm. And I think that's probably because I have so much Virgo in my chart. But I struggled for a long time trying to balance that sense of everybody needs to have a purpose and everybody needs to have like this thing that lights them up. And for me, it was always writing and storytelling. And I have always tried to make that into some sort of a career thing. And I've done it in various ways. And now I'm feeling really content that what I do, what I get paid to do, isn't super duper creative. And that means I get to pour everything into actual creative work. So it's nice to sort of come full circle on that. So
yeah, totally.
No, I agree.
The corporate job to pay the bills, because we all got to eat.
Keeps the lights on.
But then you can like save that creative juice for just completely what you want to do on your own time and not within the parameters of like, you know,
for sure,
these are our goals and what are your quarterly 2 pushes?
Yeah.
It's not wasted there.
I'm sure we'll probably talk about this book at some point, but Big Magic by Liz Gilbert, which we're not going to talk about the new book.
That's a different episode.
That's also a different episode. But Big Magic was her like creativity kind of like woo-woo book. And I really like it. I've reread it like every year for the last couple of years. I think it gets me in the zone, but she does talk about the fact that after she completed Eat, Pray, Love, she did not quit her day job for like quite a long time after that, actually. And she does talk about, you know, she did not want her creativity to have to work. She didn't want her creativity to be burdened by having to pay her bills. And obviously she has fuck you money now from all of her deals and stuff. But I definitely think that there's something to be said about that, to kind of carving out that little
Mhm.
piece of you that nobody else gets to have at work, and that's kind of nice. And yeah, I that's what I'm doing, and I think that's one of the reasons also that we I think wanted to do the podcast was because we all are working full time, and this is something that we really like to do, but it's on the side, and how do we make room for that? How do we learn and grow and continue this creative life? And
Yeah. So I love that full circle for you, Marie. Look at you.
it's
Knowing
beautiful.
only four things.
I'm going in
I call
circles. It's not a
BS.
spiral. I'm going
It's
in a
not a
circle.
spiral, it's a
I'm not
circle.
spiraling. What are you talking about?
Reframe, reframe.
Reframe. Silver lining.
I love it. On that note, after our brief bios, I feel like this is a good like next step intro. When did you start reading romance and why do you keep reading? It's kind of like a fun little question. Allie, if you want to like go first, I'm just
Yeah.
calling you out here.
I would love to be the type of romance writer that is like, I was reading The Bodice Rippers like in my grandma's basement. I
Totally.
was not doing that. I was absolutely reading YA stuff. And my favorite, I actually just recently got this on Thrift Books,
Look at
the
that.
A-List series. This is sort of the California version, I would say, of Gossip Girl. It takes place in Hollywood. Really, it definitely has a romance arc for a couple of the characters. And then my mom handed me the Stephanie Plum novels. I think it was Hard Eight, and I have that here too. Good old Janet Ivanovich. And
Oh,
this imprinted on me very hard because I was like, wait, so I can have romance and I can have sex, but like I can also have a really exciting, fast moving plot. Yes, sign me up. So
yeah.
I think one summer my mom gave this book to me and she was like, oh, I think that you would like this. And I was like, great. And then she was like, oh, yeah, there's sex in there. And then she walked away. So
Take
that
that
was
for
sort of
what you will.
take that for what you will. Exactly. You know, as I continue to read rom-coms, kind of I mean, I am a product of You've Got Mail and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and While You Were Sleeping. And I think I keep coming
100%.
back to the romance genre because, like I said, they deliver on both romantic arcs and character arcs. So you really get two plots for the price of one. And I think that there's something really comforting and wonderful about opening up a romance novel and knowing that you get a happy ending and you're going to be taken on this journey and there's going to be things that are going to be absolutely crazy that are going to happen, but it's going to end well and there's a sense of security in that. And I also think that it is kind of a fun practice as well from the writer standpoint to see how the writer is going to take you from point A to point B or to the end of the happily ever after or happy for now. And like, how are they going to make this genre convention work with their specific story? And also, I am neurodivergent and I feel things very deeply. And so I also read romance to feel things. I love to laugh. I love to cry. I'm a trash panda for angsty romance novels as well. And yeah, those are kind of the reasons that I love the genre. That's where I started. And yeah, we're gonna continue to come back. Amber.
I love that. Oh my God, that's such a hard act to follow. Okay. And hilariously, I need to do a hear me out here. Okay.
Okay.
So this was the first series I was obsessed with that made me a voracious reader. So it's not really a romance, but why it's a romance for me is because even though they didn't end up together, when I read this series, I constantly shipped two characters. So the Harry Potter series. I loved it, imagination and the character building. And that was probably the first book series that I remember waiting for when it was going to come out to get to our Walmart in town. Cause at the time that was the only place that sold books to get there before they would sell out. But I was always shipping Harry and Hermione. So I remember once getting towards spoiler alert, everybody, they don't get together for reading like crazy. And then I'm kind of a basic bitch. The first real romance was Twilight. I can vividly remember in high school laying in my parents' backyard in a hammock, like just crushing one of the books over summer break. And then very similarly, I remember, oh, you can have plot and romance. I love this. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. And then probably in undergrad is when I did true romance. I don't know if it was feeling of independence and your own money and you could do things without judgment or you could do things without having people know, right? Like there was still that stigma or I felt the stigma still about reading romance, so I could just like secretly do it and buy books or go to the library. But I don't know if you guys remember at that time, it was a lot of paranormal romances. I
Mm-hmm.
found
Yes.
one when I was cleaning my office. I read Christina Dodd a lot in undergrad.
Oh my God.
I don't even remember, but like the stereotypical like man shirtless on the cover. Like this was just like the OG.
That was a
Um,
moment. That was
it
a
was
whole
a huge moment, but
that
that
was a
was
whole moment.
probably this was my first real. I think we're digging into like we can have plot, we can have fun, we can have character development, and some spicy. The door's gonna be open. You're gonna see the
We
sexy
love an open
times.
door.
And I was like, oh my God, this is great. So I think that was really the first introduction. And I stayed around for a lot of the same reasons that you don't have to choose. I kept going back to it. You have that certainty of the happily ever after. And I love relationships. At the time, I probably didn't realize it, but now looking back, I was just absorbing that and kind of thinking about what do I want in relationships, right? But I think we can live so many lives through fiction. So I never
I
stopped,
love
and
that.
I'm keeping coming back.
Did you ever write Harry and Hermione fanfic? Because we
I
know
didn't.
we've got the Hermiones out here
I
these
know.
days.
So contentious. Yeah.
And I don't know why. I didn't really know what fanfic was. Otherwise, I was a loser, or I wasn't on the right like websites when you had to do dial up. Do you remember the song?
Yes.
But
The song.
Do you
the
think
That was
that you
song.
beautiful.
could I please have like a 3-act play of Dial Up the Musical? Amber?
I said I wasn't going to sing, and then I did dial up, and that was so much worse.
That was majestic.
It was
I
so
felt
good.
like I was really there.
Totally.
It took me back.
Needless
I just
to say,
need to put
no.
up my like angsty away message of like song lyrics for like my junior high
Aim.
crush that was
on
definitely
on
not
on
AOL.
AOL Instant
caring
Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
about my crush. Yeah.
Oh, now that I've embarrassed myself, we got out of the way. But no, I did not write fan fiction. But I think if I knew there were sites where you could do this and like prompts and encouragement to do so, I totally would have done that 100%.
I definitely found fanfic at probably too young of an age, but let's just call it formative.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of my romance reading history, the first romance novel I can remember reading was Morning Glory by Lavrell Spencer. And I know it was one that I liberated from my sister, and I think she liberated it from our grandma.
You have the like ideal true origin story that
You
Allie
do.
was talking
You
about.
absolutely. That's the origin story
She
that I
really
want.
Oh, look at
liked
her. She's like, I'm so jealous.
well, no, I think the thing is that like my mom's a retired English teacher. I was a very early reader and I was very insufferable in my preferences. And so like I read very widely and I read a lot of sort of like YA fantasy before it became what it is now. Neither positive nor negative, but that's a different episode. Definitely a genre shift in what YA fantasy was
To what
when
it
I
is
was a
now.
YA. But yeah, I remember I read quite widely and I remember reading Morning Glory and I think my sister or my grandma or maybe both of them, they both really liked this Americana like the good humble farmer or the returned soldier. I think that was what the hero was in Morning Glory is she's like the heroine is like a widowed, she's got like 2 kids or something and she's pregnant and her husband was horrible and he died because a horse fell on him or something. I don't remember.
Lots
And
going on.
What a way to
she's like
die.
slightly crazy. Like the town thinks she's
It
crazy,
sounds
so
like
she
a
like
country
lives.
song, if we're being honest.
It's a bit yeehaw. It's the
A little
yeehaw
bit, yeah.
quotient is approaching 80%. And then the hero is like a returned soldier who has like seen things in the war. And I just remember it was very formative on multiple levels. One was that I really enjoyed kind of like what you said, I really enjoyed that romance was like the plot. And I really enjoyed that these two people, you know, through all of their flaws and difficulties, kind of found a home in each other. And like, I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite books, but what I remember from it, other than like the plot and like the romance and like being like, oh, I enjoy this, is the fact that the book has a semi vague sex scene in it. I haven't read this in years, so I could be totally wrong, but I remember that it had this very abstract description of an orgasm about how he like took her to the edge, and there, like a bird, she poised on the edge of a branch and then took flight. And I remember reading it and being like, I don't know what that means.
Were there
What?
any like tender pearls or,
I don't remember that there were
quivering
any.
centers, velvet wrapped in
But the fact
silk,
that
or
you
think there
remember
anything
that
that
was.
comparison to like the branch and the bird, I mean, that has
I'm
stuck
gonna,
with you
I'll
for
have
how
to
many
find the
years
quote now
now?
and read it.
For
Cause
sure.
like,
We'll have to like link
it's
it or
very
something.
of the time. It's very of the time. And I remember like now as an adult, like not to brag, but I have had sex and like,
You have a kid, so
I do have it. I do have a child.
you've done
Well,
it.
maybe I might have had sex. That's a different episode. But anyway, I just remember as like now reading it, I if I think about like how I relate it to my own writing, like how intense, how explicit do I want to get on this scene? Do I want it to be more abstract? Do I want it to be? But like definitely as a kid, I was like, I don't understand what's happened. Like I know they're in bed, I know things are happening, but I'm like, I don't really get that. But in contrast, the book had a very explicit unmedicated childbirth scene
Oh.
that involved like he needed to go get boiled water and a clean
Oh.
knife and like the horse barting so she could like bite on it or something. I don't know. And I just remember that like it was so like we can tell you exactly what happened while she's giving birth, which I always thought was interesting. It was a choice. It was a choice. No shade to Miss Laverle, but yeah, and I read a lot of romance stuff on and off. Some were kind of classic historicals of that era, and then I really enjoyed getting into like Lisa Kleypas, like all of the books and the one with the four sisters that are taken in as the wards, and I really like Christina Milan. Like I think that
Oh
she always
yeah.
does such cool, interesting characters and scenarios. So I read a lot of Regency. I did get kind of a scenic route tour through like your Sherilyn Kenyon. I enjoyed the Shadowhunters. Um,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and also like I am the kind of person that I don't really have guilty pleasures. I just have pleasures. Like I don't
I
so I
love
think that's
that.
helped considerably with like there is such a stigma around romance and I conceive of romance as I don't know what this says a lot about me psychologically, but I conceive of romance as essentially a fantasy. Like we don't have that opportunity in real life with the people we actually interact with. So um just enjoying romance and enjoying love, this sort of endless cycle of like, we know where they're going, but how are they going to get there? Like they're going to go through all of these trials and all of these issues and they're going to resist it and they're going to fight it, and then they're gonna run and make amends, and they're gonna have the scene where they're running for each other in the airport, and just
Oh,
kind
the
of
airport
glorying
scene.
in tropes. I enjoy well done tropes. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Just have fun. Enjoy what you do, because I think it comes through. Like, as a reader, you can tell when someone is having a lot of fun. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Eloisa James is another one I read a lot
Oh
of,
yeah,
where I feel
she's
like she's
yeah.
always having a ton of fun when she's
And
writing, and it just comes
Lorraine
through.
Heath too. Yeah.
Yes, likewise,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think it's nice to see, like it's nice to just feel like love wins,
Oh.
and there's something just really satisfying. I mean, my theory about why people like anything is that we all want to reread the thing we love again for the first time, and none of us can. Like, I would love to be able to listen to my favorite albums again. I would love to be able to read my favorite books again for the first time, and so I think we're all searching for the new familiar. So I think that's probably why is like you're just sort of chasing that high.
All right. Our next section is Book Nook, where we chat about what we've been reading and loving lately because we were romance readers first before we were romance writers.
Okay. So I just finished People Watching by Hannah Bonam-Young. I read both the paperback and audiobook at the same time, and I went back and forth. I just have been having a lot more luck using audio as well, just because you can do more things. But the narrators were Victoria Connolly and Brandon Francis, and they were delightful. The summary of this one is our heroine is Prudence, who she really finds her peace and happiness living in her hometown of Baysfield, which is a quiet tourist town in northern Ontario. She's introverted and likes her routines. She works at her dad's gas station and she writes poetry and she takes care of her mother who has early onset Alzheimer's. And then our hero is Milo. He is a wanderer. He is currently traveling around in his beat up van. He kind of just rolls into town on a whirlwind to help his family. It's just the right time for Prudence that she desperately needs a change for a certain reason. I'm not going to tell you, but they strike up an agreement and a friendship that leads to some casual sex lessons at Prue's request. So that kind of sets us up
Love a
here.
sex lesson.
Yeah. And you know, I have read all of Hannah's work and I love it. So she did it again. And I have to admit, this one took me by surprise. Because again, I was like, another guy in a van. I don't know
There's a
how I'm
trend.
going to feel about it. You know, apparently that's my bias. I don't know.
Maybe you
Hashtag
are
van life.
maybe you are
Hashtag
into
van
guys in
life.
vans.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like the stranger danger they instilled in us, like when we were little, like the stranger in the van with the candy. Like Scruff McGruff told me to stay away, you know, like when we were little. Oh, sorry, a little unhinged side note there. But yeah, so I ended up loving Milo, and I just couldn't put this down. Um, and it was a take on the Wallflower and the Rake. It isn't because she's kind of ostracized by society and is too shy and is just put there. She wants to be where she is. It's not because she doesn't have control of it. That is what she enjoys. She's not ashamed of it. She leans into it. This is where she wants to be. And she's kind of having to fight that in some parts of the book that like people perceive her of like, well, you're still in your hometown. You haven't gone and done anything. You're taking care of your mom. You need to go and do these things. And she's like, listen to me. I am happy here. So I really love that take on the Wallflower. And then too, Milo has a mustache where normally I'm like, oh, a man of the van and a mustache. But like he is sexy and has tattoos and he just grew on me. And they as characters really, I think, see each other and the things that they maybe don't love in themselves, the other sees it and loves that part of them for them and helps them move through that, which was just really beautiful that they see each other without judgment and they have such honest and open communication. It was really inspiring because I think that sounds simple, but it's really hard to do, whether in written word or in real life when your own relationships. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. Also, the spice in this book was flamin' hot. It was great. It didn't disappoint. So it's definitely completely open door. And you are right in the action. So whether that excites you or not, just disclaimer, you know, there will be spice in this book. And it was chef's kiss. So if any of that sounds good to you, pick up People Watching. It's a good one.
What about you?
Awesome. So I read, this was kind of like a late summer, like a late summer palette cleanser because I'd kind of been in a series of reading books that just were not hitting. There's a whole discourse we could probably have at another time about marketing things as rom-coms that aren't actually rom-coms. But you guys heard the feature film length amount of voice memos that I sent, so we don't need to go back over that. But
we did, and we feel you though. You are seen because when you go into something expecting, you know, I want a chocolate ice cream cone and someone gives you strawberry. It's not that strawberry isn't good, but I'm craving the chocolate ice cream cone. Why did you tell me that's what it was going to be? So I think that's totally understandable and important, and to get the right marketing or describe the book correctly and what it's about in the genre.
Yeah, and I'll probably write a Substack about it eventually because I just feel like, the rom-com genre, I think there's a lot of mistrust now with it because everything, they started marketing everything as a rom-com like 5 years ago. Like there was this huge push, but it's just a contemporary romance. But anyway, to kind of switch gears, I listened to Flying Solo, the audiobook by Linda Holmes. She wrote Evie Drake Starts Over, and I really enjoyed Evie Drake Starts Over a couple of years ago. Flying Solo was her second book, and Julia Whalen is the narrator. So I needed something comforting.
She's so great.
She's my queen. I just needed her. And
I need you to help me get me out of the slump, and she never disappoints.
She does. This book, I think I liked Evie Drake a little bit better, but the thing that I really liked about this book, I will say, it's not a romance. It has a romance B plot that I still think was satisfying for the story. And it's women's fiction. However, I hate to use that term, but just to differentiate the fact that it's more about personal journey than it is about the actual like romance journey. So it's more about the main character's personal journey. But it was very cute. It takes place in Maine, and I love coastal Maine, so I wanted to go back to that as I was reading. And essentially, Lori, who's the main character, she returns to her great aunt Dot's house after she passes away to clean out her home, and she uncovers like a mysterious wood duck that gets stolen, and there's like a mystery around that and what it's worth, and there's some shady characters. It's very cute. And Lori, our heroine, she's 40, which I thought was refreshing. And it was also really nice to see representation of love where neither of the characters gave up like their life and their desires, which I feel like so often we see that. And Marie, I think you talked about this at some point as well, of just a lot of times, it's like, oh, the resolution is that someone sacrifices for the other, and that does happen, and that is true, and that is an expression of love. But also, how can you compromise? Like, how can you navigate the in between and the both? Like, I think that that's also something that we don't always see. And so with this book, Lori lives in the Pacific Northwest, and so completely across the country, and loves her life. But her romantic interest has a life that is very rooted in his hometown in Maine. And they talk about how nice it is to fall asleep with people, but also sleep in their own beds. And basically, how do you create like a Venn diagram of your lives? And I felt that that was like really real, especially like a mature relationship that, people are older and they have already an established a life without the other person, and they're meeting this other person later. So I really liked the representation of that. And I think, Julia always kicks it out of the park with the narration, and I enjoyed it.
That sounds so
awesome.
good. I need to add that
Yeah.
to my TBR. I have not read that one yet.
Yeah, I shared this the other day with some friends of mine, where I was like, the heroine of my project is, she doesn't want kids at the beginning of the story, and she doesn't want kids at the end of the story. And like, you're welcome, readers, because I feel like that's one thing.
Yep.
Like I'm a mom.
Yep.
I love being a mom, but that's one thing that I think, especially in romance, you see like the shorthand of how they write. I see this in like kind of historicals, not current ones, but the shorthand of how they write. And I'm just picking on this trope, how they write like, I'm an independent woman, like I don't want kids. And then she meets the hero, and it's like all of a sudden she changes from having these particular goals to having other goals. And that's not to say that your goals in life can't change, or that your opinions can't change. Of course they can. Like, that's very human and very normal. But oftentimes the way it gets portrayed in books, when it's done, in my opinion, less satisfyingly, is that it's kind of like the difference between like if something is advertised as a rom-com and then you pick it up and you're like, oh my God, this is about trauma. Like, is this really marketed correctly? I think when you have a character at the start that has like this really, really strong, like, I won't live in the city. Like, I won't live in the city. That's not for me. And then they meet that person and they're like, oh, now I love the city. And it's like, if you had a friend like that in real life, I would look at her and go, girl, is that really the best fit for you? If this is such a fundamental value, if this is such a core value for you, and then you just give it up. And I'm not saying people can't. Like, it can be done really, really well. You can have somebody who is like, I won't live in the city, or I don't want kids, or whatever. I love, characters' capacity to change, but it's just, there's something really, really nice about reading a book where, especially when you're dealing with more mature people, where, yeah, you've got your life, and that's very realistic and relatable. You've got your life, you're established. You're not going to have the new relationship energy that you would at 20 when you don't own any matching spoons. Like,
yeah, anything is better than what you have. Sure, I'll move across the country. Like, I've barely started. Why don't I try this out?
Which is not to say that 20-year-olds can't have strong opinions either. Right. But, we leave space in life and in books for people to change their mind. But also, it can be really satisfying when a character like has this deeply held thing, and then they question it and they go like, is that for me? Could that work out for me? Like, I'm thinking about the sort of the setup of the heroine in Ellie Palmer's first book, where she's just like, I'm not the kind of person that goes out and does these adventures. Like, I could become that person, but like, if I'm really honest with myself, I'm really not. And I'm
doing it for somebody else.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of a fundamental incompatibility. And, anyway, so that sounds really intriguing to me. That sounds very
Yeah.
realistic and human.
I thought it was really good. Yeah, I was into it. The meat of this episode and what we hope to bring forward in various episodes is what we like to call Craft Corner. And Craft Corner is us going to be discussing craft books and hopefully learning for ourselves, but also having a discussion and kind of recapping it for you, the audience, so you can see if you're interested in purchasing the book, what you could potentially take from it, and having a discussion about that. And this section may change a little bit, but this episode, why you're here, why we're all here, is Romancing the Beat by none other than Gwen Hayes. And there, oh yes, let me grab her.
She's tiny too, so she's not overwhelming, but
she's just a
I'm
small,
holding
she's
the
just
Kindle
a wee,
edition.
you're holding the Kindle edition.
She's just a wee gal.
But she is so packed. Like, she's mighty.
She is. She's got, like, every single paragraph does pack a punch. Like, it is not a long book, but it is instructive. And I think I've read this now 3 times, I think, from when I first got this book back in 2021. And every time I sort of take more from it, even though it's seems like it's pretty simple, but it's very impactful. Let's get to her. Romancing the Beat is by Gwen Hayes, and it is like a super good entry point to romance beats. And I think that if you are interested in writing romance, it is generally one of the craft books that is immediately recommended. Wouldn't you guys say? Like, I feel like it's Save the Cat Writes a Novel, Romancing the Beat, and then, maybe something else. But it's usually like a top 2 or 3 book that people recommend for romance subgenre. I think it also applies if you're writing a book that maybe has a romance subplot, just to kind of get the general arc of a romance subplot. So it's often called the Romance Bible for this reason. Gwen Hayes, the author, is a romance writer and editor, and she published Romancing the Beat back in 2016, and you can find it online. We'll include links in the show notes. Unfortunately, her personal website that's listed in this book is no longer available, and I don't think that she has as much of like an internet footprint these days. And the only place that I have been able to find this book is on the website that starts with an A. So do with that what you will. But it is there. I am kind of a person who, like, I can't watch a movie without like deep diving every actor, character, anything. I need to know everything about their life. Basically, I'm a creep. I'm really good at
Allie is
falling
the
down rabbit
one that you
holes.
want to be friends with if you go missing. Like, she's the friend, the white woman on the internet that is going to find you or find the
Yeah, probably.
person who knows how to track you down. So, like, in advance, thank you for being that friend.
Yes. I can definitely, like, story for another time, but I'm definitely the friend who can find all of the dirt on the guy that you match with on Hinge. No
Yes.
doubt. And I can do it in a pretty scary, quick amount of time. So back when I bought this book, like I said, in 2021, I did subscribe to her newsletter. And according to Gwen, she is closed for editing and critique services, and it is kind of semi-retirement, focusing on her family. And actually, she did recently offer some words of encouragement in her last newsletter message, which I think was last year, that she's starting to work on some more stories under a new pen name, but that the publishing business is hard, obviously, and it's ever changing. And, she's trying to kind of change some things up, because what was working, 10, 15 years ago is not the market now, which, I mean, I think that we can tell. I feel like 10 years ago, like, vampires, absolutely not. We've had enough of Twilight, and now, like, vampires are very in right now.
And
Vampires are so back. They
so
are
back.
They are so back. And I guess that's the lesson of, if you just remain undead and just hang around long enough, like, you will become popular again. So that's
Never give up.
Make a note of
I
that.
mean, that's a good word for advice. So just wanted to shout out Gwen Hayes. Thank you so much for your contribution to the genre. And we hope that we do you proud today in discussing your work and how you have helped so many authors, writers, anybody that's interested in the romance genre, because I think that she does a really good job breaking things down and I think it clearly comes from a place of like wanting to create satisfying stories in romance. So thank you, Gwen. We
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Gwen.
You keep it so real. I think one of the things that is really important that Gwen talks about in this book is that you have to know your character. And I think that's kind of a theme that we'll see in probably some of the other craft books that we'll discuss. You need to know your character, their flaws, their wounds, etc. And romance is most effective when there is both internal and external activators of tension of those wounds. And when the romance reacts to and also drives the plot. So, all of that to say is that you have to have well developed characters. There's really no way around it. And that they in turn activate a juicy plot.
And we need a juicy plot.
We love a juicy
Always
plot.
need a juicy plot. Yeah, I think, Alyssa, a lot of some popular craft books that you will consistently see is really focused on that external plot, which is wonderful and you should have too, but it doesn't really dive into the romance plot, the internal struggle that you were talking about, Allie, and like the interpersonal connection between your romantic couple. So that's why this is so great. Not only is it very small that you can easily digest it, but it's very to the point and it gives you that extra layer that you may not see in other craft books. Because again, you need that external plot in any story you're going to write, right? Like in any genre, horror, action, mystery, right? But what is it that gives, if there's going to be, even if it's just a subplot of the romantic feeling, how is that intertwining? How does that feel authentic? What moves that relationship and plot different from the external plot? I think the three of us discussed when we were getting ready and why we love Gwen so much is like, this is one of the few craft books that really hones in and focuses on romance, because there's a lot that's focused on the general plot in different genres or maybe just traditional or classical literature examples, which is great. And you can still learn things from them. But again, we are romance readers and writers. We really want to hone in on that romantic beat. See what I did there? Romancing the beat. Never mind.
10 out of 10.
I
You
see.
stuck the landing.
Beautiful.
Good job.
Gold star.
When you have to explain the joke, that means it's really funny. You
It's
know,
That's what
extremely
I've heard. I've heard that
Yeah.
before. Yes.
Yeah.
Makes it even funnier.
It makes it even funnier. And then two, like the happily ever after. You're going to have a happily ever after, and love conquers all. So that also is even though you're having to do the multi-layers, those are two pieces. That is a given.
Honestly, I feel like I definitely resonate with what you're saying about I can get something out of a lot of different craft books. And when I started like writing for serious, a lot of the books that I looked at actually were screenwriting books because I found it really interesting the way things were sort of like I love a good spreadsheet. I love a good like percentage of amount of plot. But also I feel like with a lot of craft books, when I first started really writing for serious, for realsies, it's so easy to get caught up in like, okay, this first beat, it has to happen at exactly 25% of the story, or like, I need to like fit it in, I need to whatever. And I think Romancing the Beat does really well because it's a good reminder that like all stories are the most satisfying when the reader wants the character to get what they want, even if it's not in their best interest, even if it's futile or stupid or self-destructive, like we connect with a character because we can find a way to relate to it. And it's very different when you have a character that's like, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence because like, it's going to vindicate my family and my legacy. That's a very clear motivation that's related to a character's like inner world. If they didn't care about their family and their legacy, then
It's a
it
great
wouldn't
movie.
matter. And like in a way, like every well executed plot is a romance. I guess I'm just thinking about like, do we treat romance books as like romance craft books separate from craft books and when and why and how? Like good stories have the same elements. It's just it's easier to look at it and go, ah, yes, I see that family connection, the vindication. They're going to be doing this series of actions to get the thing they want. But with a romance, you're dealing with usually, sometimes dual POV, sometimes not, but you're dealing with two people. It's like if the Declaration of Independence was a character and they were like, well, I don't want to be stolen. Like, well, then it's a romance
Yeah.
novel. Like, then you have completely different like motivation but like, you know what I'm saying? And that maybe that's the next book is sentient Declaration of Independence fanfic.
Well, or how to make non-romance, like how do we make something romance that's not romance? You know, that would be a fun
Right.
exercise.
Well, that would be a fun exercise, like how we would use create the
Yeah.
beats for the story to make it
Right.
romantic.
Like how could you make National Treasure a romance? Like like
Romance
excluding
first.
romance
Yeah.
Yeah.
first.
Not
And
just
I'm
the
not
little
It's like
talking about like the natural like sort of subplot with Nick Cage and the lead actress that I'm blanking on her name, but you know, I think that
is it Diane
that could be
Kruger?
possibly that
Yeah,
would be a fun
right.
exercise.
But that's, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's a good example and it's reminding me, I know I'm going off topic here, but
That's what we're here for.
I mean,
in
that's
the
what we
that's what I'm
do.
here for. I'm not here to stay on topic. I was not
No.
made
Outlines what
to be
outlines.
sensible in this economy. But even in the little like, because typically in craft books, romance is treated as like that's usually what the B plot is. You've got your big important
Right.
action
Right.
scenes. You know, they're trying to get the thing they want, and then they have these setbacks, and then they have like a wise mentor, and then they have, you know, oh my gosh, a conflict, and oh my gosh, we didn't win. What's gonna happen? Wait, we're rallying, and like throughout that, the B plot is woven in, and it's hard to write romance if you take just a B plot from a craft book and write your romance like a B plot from a craft book. If you just took, you know, all of the A plot out of National Treasure and you just looked at the romance beats, you would be like, he gets her a coin. Like, wow,
And
groundbreaking. Florals for
yeah.
That's
spring.
it.
And they talk a
Yeah.
few
But
times and have a
no,
few
that's a little
glares across
unfair.
the
It's a little
room.
unfair. It is not a romance for the ages here, but it's a little unfair. But or like with my other favorite example, which is Die Hard, which is like you see these two
Oh, yes.
characters, they're at this particular point of conflict. They both want very different things. They both can't get the thing they want. I think actually Die Hard is a great example of how to write a romance. And people call me crazy, but
I
they
think
laughed at
we're going to
Copernicus.
talk a little bit more about that later, I think,
I'm
as we get
I
always
think
gonna
so.
I'm
I
always
think
down to
there's
talk
going to
about
be a
Die Hard.
bonus
If
episode
it's a
down the
Christmas
road.
movie, I will die on this hill.
I you will
But
die
the
hard on
point
this hill?
is,
Yeah.
You will die
I'm
hard
sorry.
on the hill.
I will die
I
hard.
heard
But
you.
I'm
I heard
really
you
it's not
out.
sorry.
even that good of a movie.
I,
It's just I think it's
Are you
good when
sure
you
it's
look
not a
at
good movie? Because you're really promoting
I
it
do like
hard.
it.
yeah.
It's very sexy. No, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I wasn't hugged enough as a child. I think that's my problem. But anyway, I think the reason why getting a craft book specifically for romance is that so many other craft books, romance is the B plot, and it's kind of implied that like particularly with like heterosexual romance, if you've got a male lead and then a woman shows up, you're going to be like, ah, okay, that's the breeding pair. Let's put them in the penguin enclosure. You know, like it, and you don't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. But if you're going there specifically for the couple, like that's not going to be sufficient. And you want
Context
to
podcast quote.
feel
That has to be
I
added. I'm
know.
sorry.
Unhinged.
you want them to get what they want. Like I want Aiden at the beginning of your story to get his anonymity. Like I want him to have that. I want him to have a quiet life. I want him to be,
Poor Bubba, he's
you know,
earned it. He's
he's earned
earned
it.
it.
I want him to put it behind him. And I also want her to be able to write this story. Like I think that's so important to get right out of the gate. And I think that's something that romancing the beat really helps with is that it's set up so that you really have to start thinking about your characters in terms of what do they want? What do they need? How is that going to inform them to take action to get what they think is going to make them happy? And then when do they have a realization that it won't? Anyway, so I like a lot of craft books. I think there's something interesting out of all of them, but this one, I mean, it's a classic for a reason.
It is.
And I will say that like every different craft book handles structure differently. You know, you've got your 3 act structures, you've got your 4, you've got your 5, you've got like the 9 key beats, and you've got the beat sheet or whatever. I always look at plot structure as it's like signposts, but it's not like a cake pan. Like it's handy to
Yes.
look at when you're outlining, and then you have to kind of write for a while, and then you have to go back and look at it and be like, oh, is that hitting where I think it should be hitting? Because
Right.
sometimes it's not, and you write a scene and you're like, oh, they're having this revelation, but they're having it way over here, and actually they need to know that here, and then you have to like get them back on the train. Yeah, and like in Romancing the Beat, like Gwen basically says that like the 4-act structure, it's a recipe, not a pre-flight checklist, which I think is a great way to put it.
Great way to put it. She's great.
Yeah. And also too that like um multiple different chapters are going to contain like you might have one beat that stretches across multiple chapters, or you might hit a couple of them right in the row, and just learning that you're doing it so that you're taking these characters on this journey. And she describes it as wholehearted to wholehearted, um, as the romance arc. How do you put obstacles in the way of these characters? Once you know what they want and what they're going to do to try and get it, how do you put shit in front of them so that they have to deal with it and grow and figure shit out about themselves? Um, and I love this. External plot should make your characters' lives worse. And that's the key, is that like
Yeah, like,
Make it worse.
sometimes
When
you
in
pull your
doubt,
punches.
you just make
You're
it
like,
worse.
oh.
just think about
See,
that for
I
a minute,
love
you
putting
know?
characters in situations. I love making it worse.
Yeah.
Um,
That's like my favorite thing to do.
yeah,
Hence why we're here. We
That's
just
why
make
we're
it
here.
worse.
we love to make it worse.
We all have a
That's
Machiavellian streak, you know?
Oops.
yeah. You just
Oops.
you just put Blorbo in a jar and you just shake them. You just
You
shake 'em.
The
just shake
Prince
'em.
isn't a craft book, but for Allie, it might be on her shelf right there.
Oh my god, the
Maybe.
art of war. Amazing. Okay, so we are going to do kind of a super high level look at the 4 beats outlined in Romancing the Beat. So the first one is the setup.
Oh,
That's you.
Pregnant
Act 1,
pause.
the setup
Yes.
Allie.
Act 1,
I'll be
the
your
setup.
Take the
guide
stage.
through I'll be your guide through Act 1.
Go off, queen.
All
Take
right.
us on a ride.
All right. So the setup. The setup gives you 4 different beats. And I will say, I think Marie, you mentioned this, but to be clear, Gwen operates off of a 4-act structure. So we will be doing 4 acts here for Romancing the Beat. So our rundown is we have the intro, meet cute, no way 1, which is what she calls, and then the adhesion plot beat, which is the other, I think, my favorite, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I think I would like to preface this by saying that we have shorter and shorter attention spans. Like the TikTokification of our existence is very clear. And I think how this book is set up, it's very much like how I think books were written 10, 15 years ago, of like you have a couple of chapters of like the snapshot of, you know, your first character and what their life is like and what they need and all that stuff. And then you have another chapter or 2 of the other main character and what they need and what's wrong in their life. And then you have the progression of the meet cute and all that stuff. But what we're seeing is that time needs to be condensed way down. And so I think the books that are getting picked up by agents and publishing houses, they have their 2 main characters on page like ASAP. I think there was, what was that book? It was a Tessa Dare one. It was like the Beauty and the Beast retelling. The Duchess deal, maybe? Did I make that up? But like their meet cute is like in the first 2 pages. Like they're like on page in the first 2 pages. So I think how we can adapt this is we just need to introduce our characters quickly together in a way, though, that makes it compelling. And it still, I think, is important to show the before times or allude to the before times. So, what is their normal life? But make it clear that something's not right. Trouble is ahead. As they say in The Little Mermaid, there's a hurricane a coming. That's right. I think I notice this a lot when I'm reading, and I don't know if it's just because, like, in my schooling, we were really big in my district on like foreshadowing. Like, we always had to talk about foreshadowing. But I think I love that feeling of, ooh, the author mentioned this, like, there's a little something there. And I think that that's definitely something that you can start to do like right away on page 1. You know, you definitely need to introduce your character's external goal. So it's best if you can have their external goals be in opposition. That creates a high level of tension, and you want to build layers of tension when you're talking about romance, I think. And I think honestly, it makes like a compelling story of any type, but especially with romance, because I think a lot of people love enemies to lovers, myself included, as a trope. But I think what people like is they like that high friction, high tension. And you can still do that without that trope. So I think one of the ways that you can do that is this way. I did also want to shout out Regina Black. She just came out with August Lane. That's her newest release, but I follow her on Substack and she has some really awesome craft pieces on Substack. You guys should absolutely subscribe to her. But she had a great one recently called My Characters Hate to See Me Coming. And it's basically how she like lays out how she builds complex characters and that they like exist to cause problems, complementary, and build up the tension. So that's like another thing that I think would be good to have you take a look at. But I think in this introduction, you're, like I said, you are introducing their external goal and you are hinting at what your character needs. And then the classic romance trope is the meet cute, right? Particularly in rom-coms. It's important to make it memorable. Gwen also suggests that in the meet cute, ideally, you should show the internal and external conflict. Do you guys have a favorite like meet cute in media? Like in a movie, in a book, anything? I'm kind of putting you on the spot there, but like
Yeah, you are.
I'm
How
sorry.
dare
That's a
you?
good question.
I can't think of like a specific one right now, but I do maybe it's just because I read a lot of the like billionaire romances when I like in college, but I do love that like one night stand turns out to be your new boss kind of a thing. I think that's kind of fun. It's a fun meet cute, or like mistaken identity, I think can be a fun meet cute.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I can't think of any like
It's the one with Jennifer Lopez and Matthew McConaughey where her shoe gets stuck.
Oh, the wedding planner.
The wedding planner, right? And he like
Yeah.
pushes her out of the way and saves her, and then they're like in the
Oh, the classic
hospital.
damsel in distress. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
trying to think of like a popular movie that maybe, most people.
my gosh, I'm trying to think of one like yeah, I'm totally drawing a blank.
You also like
I promise I
I
know how
mean
to read.
No
that's
things.
okay.
I know many
You'll
things, you guys.
I know like a couple
I
things.
know all the
Oh my
things.
god.
I also really liked when I read The Love Hypothesis, like that's also another really good example of like characters are, if you exclude the prologue, characters are basically like on the page together, page 1, and they're kissing. And she's trying to make it look like
She has a boyfriend.
she has a boyfriend,
And
right?
she just
So
grabs this random man.
that's
And there
right.
starts the
So
As you
story.
do.
As you
one does.
do.
So I think that's also like that's a good example. I think you could technically say their meet cute happens in the prologue, like during her interview. But if we're
She
getting
doesn't
rid of
remember.
prologues, because Marie, prologue might as well be a 4-letter word to you.
No, I'm a hater.
That's okay. I think a
I
lot
can
of
be
people.
wrong. I
I
can be
think
wrong, but
many, from what
I
I've
tend to
gathered
be
on the discourse, I think many editors and agents also share your dislike for prologues. So I think you're not alone.
yeah,
Um,
I love to get right into it, and I think the reason why I'm having a hard time thinking of my favorite meet cute is number 1, a lot of the things I've read recently have characters that start off, like, knowing each other,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, yes.
and
That
number
past history.
2, the ones I can think of are projects that another friend of mine is working on right now, and, like, I don't wanna spoil her thing, so I'm thinking, like, "Oh, I like that scene when they."
Do the thing.
Do the
When
Mhm.
they
thing
meet. And
and
Yeah.
see each other. Yes. Um, then Gwen moves on for the third beat in Act 1, and that's what she calls No Way One. So this is basically the argument that your characters have against why they won't fall in love. And this is the thing that you're going to be challenging and like chipping away throughout basically all of Act 2, and then you will be bolstering this and proving this right in Act 3. So you should have one for each of your characters. And like I said, this could be a chapter, this could be a couple of chapters. And then this is my favorite. This is my favorite beat, probably to write. I love Act 1. I have to say, I like to build that. I like to build that tension. And that's the adhesion or like plot thrust. So just imagine like a hip thrust, but like a plot for the plot. This is a romance genre. So your characters have met. They have basically protested why absolutely no way you could not even conceive of being in love in the future, or especially with this person. But there's a situation that has occurred now that they cannot be apart from each other. They are glued, they are tied, they have to go forth and do something together, and they are stuck with each other for the rest of the book. That can be a literal forced proximity. That could also be, a task, a quest. There's a lot of different options for why they have to be together. Gwen says on page 38, it's time for you to rub your hands together gleefully and set about making them miserable. And I love that. This is where I, as a reader, am like, oh shit, like, oh, this is about to get good. And I get really excited. So I think if you can really build up the tension and increase that anticipation throughout like act 1, and then you've got this high tension point of, oh my gosh, I have to see what happens after this plot beat of the adhesion. I think you're in for a good time, and your characters are stuck together. There's no escape. It's going to be a rough ride. And I think the fun part as an author is you basically just assigned your characters to a group project, and you're going to make their lives miserable. And how could you not feel sick with power about that? Like, that is really fun. Because we've all been there. We've all been in that terrible group project, and you're just like, oh, you guys are going to fucking hate each other. Let me put you guys together. You guys are going to need to work it out. And you cannot tell me, educators, that you've
But they don't do
not
that on
paired up.
purpose.
You've
Oh,
not
they
paired
totally
up
do.
people in class, because I feel like I've been personally victimized by that in my youth. But anyway, so that's act 1. Amber, I'm going to let you passionately take it from here for act 2, which is our falling in love beat.
Act 2, falling in love. So the goals are going to now be attacking each other, our self-inflicted untruths about love, the things that they believe to be true but aren't, right? Their shields are up. But there's going to be sexual tension. We're going to be starting to endear towards each other. So they want each other, but they're still trying to protect themselves. So this is the really building of the tension and the back and forth. And what Allie alluded to, things are about to get good. And I'm so excited to see what happens. So the first beat that Gwen talks about is the no way, number 2. You guessed it. So this is to restate that argument, maybe in a slightly different way, or show it in a different scene, how that no way manifests and how that character acts, to restate that argument against love, why they're against it. My example is Megara from Hercules, the great no way song, right? She's starting to feel for Hercules, and she's like, no way, I won't say I'm in love. I'm not going to sing on the episode. I'm gonna fight it. I'm sure in some other episode I will. But you all know what I'm talking about, that song, right? Oh, yes. It's such a bop. But yeah, she's not going to do it.
I will save you your ears.
I'll save you your ears. She's not going to do it. And it can be from either main character's point of view, but restating that so we're all clear on, oh, that's going to be the obstacle in the way. So beat number 2 for act number 2. Now we're going to have the inkling this could work. So now we're going to try to attack that self-belief that they can't fall in love, or they can't be with that person, or they can't be vulnerable. On page 43 of Romancing the Beat, thing needs to make them stop and think. Gwen is just brilliant. So they just really have to kind of get a glimpse of what they could be if they were the wholehearted instead of the wholehearted. My example, I'm showing my id list here. The amazing cinematic masterpiece, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. So at this point in the movie, they're still kind of adversaries. Rick doesn't want to be on this adventure, but Evie got him out of jail. But Rick gives Evie a set of archaeological tools. He's almost a little shy and awkward, but before this, he's been very like gruff and in her face, like, this is what we're going to do. But he's being vulnerable for the first time with no ulterior motives, except she doesn't have tools and she needs him. And he sees her as an archaeologist, not just the librarian, which in the beginning, she has all of this knowledge, all these goals, because she's a woman, she's just a librarian, and they're yelling at her for messing up the librarian. So he actually sees her. And he's caring under that cynical exterior. And in the movie, Evie kind of like looks at him. You can see she's seeing him in a new light, right? Okay, the third beat. Maybe this will work. So now we're going to ramp up that desire. They've been showing that they can maybe be vulnerable with each other, and it's turning out okay. And it kind of feels good. Maybe they're going to have sex or do something else, or make it more intimate in a different way. We said the S word. This example, Allie.
I'm sorry.
Sex. We can say it.
No, it was the fact that we said the S word. That was what made me laugh. Not sex, but like the fact that you're like, the S word.
Does it show that I have a toddler?
It does show that you have a toddler.
So the example I was trying to think of is 4 Weekends and a Funeral by Ellie Palmer. I want to call out one of our local Minnesota authors, but this is her debut, 4 Weekends and a Funeral. And her main characters, Adam and Allie, have sex for the first time, and it's really intimate, but it's afterwards they have a really great moment, and Allie opens out about her mastectomy for the first time in the light of day and literally lets Adam see her scars. And uh, he's like, you don't have to, like, no pressure. But she's like, I want to. You're the first person I've trusted to see me, all of me. Ugh, Ellie, just like tearing at those heartstrings.
It had a very good emotional payoff, that book.
The dead, right?
It
So
really
yes,
did.
there was sex, right? But it was that emotional vulnerability afterwards that we're really connecting what it could be. And then the fourth beat here, the midpoint of love plot thrust. So this is what's going to thrust us, pun intended, into Act 3. And then show them what it would look like if they got everything they wanted, which includes love now. So we want to really bring them high. So my example for this is from 10 Things I Hate About You, where Kat finally agrees to go to the prom with Patrick, our main character. And while they're at the prom, because she wasn't going to go to the prom the whole movie, right? She's against that and the popular kids, and they show her as being emo, but she agrees to go and she's having fun. And Patrick surprises her with her favorite band. He like paid them to come perform at the prom. And we just get this really ooey gooey moment where they're dancing to the song Cruel to Be Kind, and it just feels so good. And you're like, you're so perfect together. And they feel perfect together. And it's right before everything falls apart. So those are my examples and kind of summary of those 4 beats in our lovely Act 2 of Falling in Love.
Hey guys, it's editing Allie here, and I just wanted to let you know that we have split up our Romancing the Beat episode into 2 episodes. And the reason for this is simply we were talking for 3 hours, and we figured that you probably would not want to listen to strangers talk for 3 hours. So there should be a second episode released with Romancing the Beat Part 2. And our next segment and our final segment that we're going to get into in this first episode is called Happy Endings. And that is where we talk about what we're grateful for, what we're looking forward to in the weeks ahead. All right, thanks. So, happy endings this week. How are we feeling? What are we grateful for? What's bringing us joy? Big or small, writing related or not?
Can start. Mine's a little small, but it had the biggest impact. So as I talked about, I needed to call in the cavalry, have some help with family. Things have been a little just rough waters, but my husband Patrick sent me this big, beautiful bouquet of lilies. It's so gorgeous. It's just bringing a little like
That's
extra
so
light and
sweet.
pep in my step. And also I just think, yeah, it's maybe stereotypical that it's just flowers, but the fact that he's overseas dealing with all of what he's got going on, which is a lot, and is still thinking of us and taking the extra time to order that even while he's doing all that. It was just, I felt so seen and loved. And every time I walk by, they're bright and beautiful. And just, that's my just little happy ending for this week.
I love that.
I love
What
that.
a good lad.
That's a
We love him. Husband of the pod for
husband
a
of the
reason.
pod. Husband of the pod.
That's very thoughtful.
I love it.
I don't really even have, like, not to say I don't have anything I'm happy about, but just like things are just steady. Things are just steady and good. There's
Content.
no side drama distracting me from creativity. So I'm happy with
And
that.
you can't always say that. So I feel like we celebrate that.
I was
No,
just going
I
to say, I
can't.
think that's a really
I
big
feel like we
win.
celebrate that. We celebrate
a win is a
calm
win.
waters.
A win is a win. You know
Calm
what? I'll take
waters
it.
is a huge win.
Always fucking something.
We celebrate calm waters. Yes, we do.
Oh.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What about you?
Mine is kind of existential, I guess. I am doing a lot of things right now that I desperately wanted to do like 2 years ago. And I was feeling really like not happy 2 years ago. And not saying that like external things make you happy, but I think being able to be creative and explore and just kind of getting in tune with like, what do I actually want to do? What brings me joy if money is no object? What brings me joy if like we get rid of sunken cost fallacy? Like all of those things, all of those questions that I was sort of asking myself 2 years ago when I was feeling like pretty miserable.
Mhm.
I am just like really, I feel really good right now. And I'm like,
Yay.
there certainly hard times are ahead. And like, I think that the last couple of months, you know, definitely I would say from like January to April, like I definitely had some struggles mental health wise and stuff like that as well. But I'm feeling like I'm coming out of those things a little bit better. And I have a lot of things in my life that I was hoping that I would be able to achieve, and I was hoping that I was going to be able to do that, like now I'm doing. And I think that that is like, that's always a really good thing. And that's just a reminder that like time passes and sometimes things take a little while to like get their footing. But if you want something to happen, you know, there, you can most of the time make it happen. And so I think
Oh my
I'm feeling
gosh, that's
grateful for
huge,
where I
Allie.
am.
Like you were so
Yeah.
sad and miserable 2 years ago, and you had these
I was
really
so
big
sad and
goals that thought would
miserable.
bring you joy,
Yeah.
and you just casually were like, and by the way, I'm doing them. Like,
Yeah.
holy shit. And I think thank you so much for being honest and vulnerable with us about mental health struggles, because I think, you know, there's just stigma around a lot of things in life, and it's getting better, but it's still there. And I think more people struggle than we talk about. And I myself have had my own mental health struggles, and it just sounds like I always compare it to the fog. It's kind of what it sounds like you're in the
Yeah.
fog and the
Yeah.
haze, and like it starts to clear. Like, and you're getting out and you just are so relieved that you can like start to see the landscape again, and it just feels so good. So I'm just
Yeah.
so happy for you, my friend, that like you feel
Yeah.
like you're in
Thank you.
a good
Yeah.
place.
And
And
like,
yeah.
I feel like I've been making progress towards like these goals for like the last 2 years, and the writing goal definitely started a lot sooner than like the academic goal. But I think that I would say the last, you know, 9 months have been kind of up and down energetically, inspiration wise, you know, mood, all of that stuff. And so it's just, I think, how do you come out of it
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, just kind of one foot in front of the other, and you eventually will. So just a reminder that like there are dark times, but there are good times too, you know?
Definitely.
Happy
So yeah.
endings for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And
thank you
happy
for joining us.
continuations.
Yes, thank you for joining us for our inaugural episode. And we will have part 2 of our coverage of Romancing the Beat, because it is a rich text in the second episode. So stay smutty and go forth in pursuit of your happily ever after. All right, see you next
Bye.
time. Bye.
Bye.